Well, hello, Jeffrey. Again, let's hope that it's actually working this time. Are we going
Round two.
live? Can people see us? Can people hear us? That's the most important thing. I'm going to check on you. Okay, cool. Yep. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. Apologies for anybody that wonder what the heck's going on, because that included both myself and Jeffrey right now, trying to figure out why we weren't going live, even though it said we were going live. But thankfully, it looks like that we are. So as long as everyone can hear us and see us, if you could let me know in the comment section. Thank you very much, Simon. You already preempted me. So let's start that again. Jeffrey, how are you doing, my man?
It's always better on a round two, right? Hey, Paul.
Absolutely.
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me on. I look forward to this. Well, I
Yeah,
guess part one was better.
yeah. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit sleep deprived, so if I look like I've been dragged through a hedge backwards, as in no shaving, haven't had a haircut, and I look like death warmed up, I've had about 4 hours sleep last night and about 5 hours sleep the night before, and I'm absolutely tired. Let's just put it that way. But what's happening in your part of the world?
Life is great over here. My part of the world is Thailand right now. Can't complain, you know. So life is good. Looking forward to continuing this discussion. Last week, or no, 2 weeks ago, it was interesting. I love the feedback. And, after our last conversation, the ideas and thoughts, they just kept snowballing. They kept growing and evolving. And I look forward to circling back to a lot of the things, and also looking at the responses that we got and talking about them, because this is the whole point of it, is to spark this conversation. So I'm excited.
Exactly. I think that's something maybe some people that commented, especially on the sort of the shorter version on the video we released last week or the week before, is that this is a conversation starter. We weren't suggesting that AI was going to kill web design, that WordPress was suddenly going to disappear overnight, or websites going to disappear overnight. It was a conversation starter. And I think the amount of comments that it generated, I think it was obviously a comment, it's a conversation that people are interested in having. So today, like Jeffrey says, we're going to take a look at some of the comments and feedback on some of those videos. We're going to talk about a few other points in relation to what we talked about in the first one. But as always, if you've got any comments, and I would love you to get involved in it, please do post your comments in the comment section, whether it's the live video right now or on the sort of replay once this is finished. Drop them down there, because we do read them. We do take sort of note of them, and you'll see that we do create content to talk about them afterwards as well. So the conversation isn't just a one and done today. Keep this conversation going. Give us your points of view. But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about what we talked about in those previous videos, the live stream and so on. I've got a couple of comments that I think are worth highlighting, but as always, like I say, if you've got any comments or questions, just start them with hashtag Q for question, and it'll give us a good example of what you're looking to talk about. So, Jeffrey, have you had any sort of feedback separate to those videos? Any conversations with people? Because I know that there's been a couple of conversations I've had in sort of, online conversations and different chats and things about the topic that we discussed the other week, about, is AI going to sort of remove web designers? Is, our website's going to disappear? Is WordPress on its last legs? Those kinds of things. Have you had any other sort of thoughts, conversations, chats with other people about those topics?
Yeah, I actually had one today. Uh, and it's pretty much sort of the same direction. We could see that it's disruptive. Things are changing, and we need to change and evolve. And we got to really be ready to look at how we should change, how we need to be flexible, but at the same time, we don't know exactly how. In our conversation, too, we talked about WordPress, and WordPress, I don't see it going anywhere. The person I was talking with, a good friend who I have a lot of respect for in the WordPress space, same thing. And I know that we started off the last call, and the one that had the 5 minute short video, we didn't really have too much context to it. It was just some outside opinion about, wow, WordPress is still going. The thing is, WordPress, and from what in our conversation, it's like, it's here. One thing WordPress has is stability. It has structure, and it's not going to go anywhere. And the person I was talking to made a good point about Salesforce. That Salesforce is still around. It's not that it's old, it's outdated, but still, it's one of those structures that's just trusted, and that's what WordPress really has going for it. But at the same time, we really got to be ready because these next couple of years, we just don't know what's going to happen. And I think though, before something really big happens where we're like, got to make a big pivot, we're going to see the writing on the wall. Like, wait, jobs, security, all that stuff is at risk. And we just got to be ready and just, it's not to like incite fear. It's more or less to just be open-minded, vigil, and be alert, knowing exactly what's going on. So when we do see that writing on the wall, we could react and we know how to react.
Exactly. Everything to do with web design is always in a state of flux. Nothing is rigid. Is WordPress going to go anywhere? No, not for the time being. But I think the one thing that we need to sort of highlight is that where your friend said, is WordPress still a thing? We're inside a WordPress bubble. So we live and breathe WordPress every single day. So WordPress is the center of our business in a lot of ways and the center of our sort of what we talk about. If Jeffrey and I are talking, or I'm talking with Imran, or I'm talking with other people, it's all focused around WordPress in one way or another. So we're in a position where that is all encompassing. We live inside that bubble daily. People outside that bubble, yeah, it probably is. Is WordPress still a thing? You're talking about something that was, what's WordPress? How old is it? 15 years old, something like that? Maybe longer. No, probably longer than that, isn't it? That's an awful long time in web technology. And when people hear a name from way back in the day, I think it's natural that people are going to go, is that still a thing? Is that still around? We talk about things like that. If someone said, oh, Blockbuster's gone, is that still a thing? No, it's not. But it's still something you remember from your memory as being a thing, a big thing. And if you're outside that sphere, of course you're going to wonder if it's still a thing. And I think that's the context that was kind of maybe missed when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, just to sort of clear that side of things up. Your friend isn't kind of being like, oh, no, your friend's a bit of a daft person kind of thing, to be polite. It's like, no, he's probably just not inside that particular bubble and doesn't live inside that bubble. So, yeah, his understanding of WordPress is probably completely different to ours. And I think when you hear about AI is building websites, AI vibe coding, and all these kinds of terms that are being thrown around, and how AI is being basically shoehorned into everything, including WordPress, just bear that in mind as well, that I think it's just natural you're going to consider, well, we've been told that's the future, and people are pushing that as being the future. Of course, people are going to consider that as being the next thing. This next thing is going to come along. And that's the whole point of the conversation that myself and Jeffrey want to have in these live streams today and in the previous one. Not saying AI is taking over everything, WordPress is going to die, websites are going to die. We want to talk about these particular topics that are prevalent. So that's my take on it. What about yourself?
Well, there's something else that I didn't bring up in the last call about my friend since we started this story, and I felt really bad when I saw the comments like your friend's an effing idiot or what about the technical dev? I was like, oh man, I hope he doesn't see this, because he is a good friend. But there is more to it. I think the big one is the fact that he's not a designer or developer. He was able to build his company's website by himself using AI, using Replit. He has a bit of a technical background. He can figure stuff out. He's a smart dude, but he's a businessman as well. And with that, he has created a thriving business. He knows how to build and run companies at a very high level, much higher than I have ever done in figures that I've never seen. And he's able to do that. And he's able to actually build the leading longevity center out here inside of our entire region, and it's growing. He was able to rank it in the top 10, no problem. He's able to manage it. So, a lot of the feedback that came, but what about this? What about that? It's just still, at the end of the day, you're still able to build a successful company. So it is going to be there. It's not something, and I'm saying this because it's not something we could just dismiss and be like, AI just creates rubbish. AI just creates technical debt. AI just does this. And I understand where it's coming from. I do. I feel it. I think there's a lot of I guess of a scammy culture going on. I'm really not on social media as much anymore. But every now and then I'll dip into Twitter, and my Twitter feed now is just web design, but it's also flooded with AI. And it reminds me of the old scammy crypto days. And I think that's where a lot of the sentiment is coming from, of just very anti. And I get it. I was that way with crypto when crypto launched. I still kick myself when I had the opportunity and people around me buying Bitcoin at $10, because I just put my head in the sand and said, nah, that'll never last. And I learned my lesson from that. And I guess I'm hoping that these conversations, it won't like convert people to AI. That's exact. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not a AI fan person, and whatever it is, but I've learned through these years, it's important to stay aware of what's going on, to know what's going on, to know your enemy. I mean, it's a tactic in war. You got to know your enemy, and you got to be ready to use the tools that you have, and just be ready to change, be ready to pivot. Don't deflect everything that comes your way. That would be, I guess, where I'm going with that, and why I was thinking about, I should have shared more about, the actual results that my friend got going the direction he went in.
Yeah, I think that one thing that, again, is often overlooked, and probably because a lot of the people that comment on the videos, on the live streams and so on, they are definitely in the sort of the web design industry, is that we always look at it as we want clean code, you want accessibility, all these things that we know are important aspects of having a website. You've got a person that's saying, right, okay, I want a website that does this, 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 and this. Let's just say like a business directory website, or a sort of like a ticket sales website, for example. Well, typical designer is going to go back and say, you're looking at 10 to 15,000 for something like that, because you're going to have, a lot of moving parts in there. That's a lot of money to invest in something. When they can go on and do something like that, if they're smart, you haven't got to, like I say, haven't got to be, a web designer. If they're smart enough to be able to get to grips with a tool like Replit, Bolt, those kinds of tools, if they get the results that they're looking for, let's just say for $1,000, £1,000, by the time they actually prompt their way through to getting what they want, there's a lot of people are more interested in getting that result, especially if it's an MVP, a minimum viable product, to see, is this going to make money before you invest potentially into $10,000, $15,000. They're not bothered about the underlying code, how clean the code is, how accessible it all is, because they're doing it for 1/10, 1/15 of the price, and they've spent some time doing it. We would push for the fact that, well, you need to make sure it's accessible. You need to make sure the code is clean. You need to make sure that the security is there to make sure it doesn't get hacked and your data gets leaked and all those kinds of things, that we live inside that world. This is something I think, again, is being missed. You're going to get people that are promoting, well, AI is crap, AI is slop, it's only generating rubbish. And to a certain extent, there's probably some truth in those comments. Is the code as clean as it could be? Probably not, no. But as much as we would like to be evangelists and say that's what it should be, the reality of it is there's probably more people out there that would rather get a website up and running for a small amount of money, test the market, start making money from it before they even care about those things. That's something that often gets overlooked when you get people saying AI just generates slop. And then you get other people on the other side of the fence who go like, but AI is the future. And they will just literally butt heads, because one side is 100% adamant that they are right. The other side is 100% adamant that they are right. And nobody sees the gray area in the middle. What are your thoughts?
Definitely the middle is where to be. I saw yesterday on Twitter, somebody posted that they made their first $90,000 selling their first SaaS in their first day. And I'm like, my alarm bells are going off. I'm calling BS on this. Like, I could go and inspect Element, change the numbers around, and take a screenshot of Polar and be like, I just made $90,000 in one day. I've been working my ass off for years. I know it is not that easy. And this is what we're seeing right now on the other side, the other side of the camp, where this is like, I can see now why there's these two extremes. So you got this other extreme, which is a very dishonest, scammy type of, I guess, values that are happening, and then you got another side that doesn't want to look because they see that, and I get it, but you got to be able to step back and see the middle ground. And going back to those other clients, that would rather spend $1,000 and generate their own website, I would like to look more like at the psychology that goes into that. Like, what would make a client want to go and build their own website? I think a lot of the times clients, they're unsure. They step into a market where they're looking for a web designer or developer to help them out. Everybody's giving them crazy different prices. People are contradicting themselves. They've probably been burnt before in the past and gone through it. I mean, how many times do web designers work with a client and the client pays 50% but disappears in the middle of the project? Most of the time they're disappearing because something went wrong in that project and the client figured they would rather take a loss than continue. And that's huge. And this is something that we need to focus on as web creators, those of us building sites for a living, that we need to really step up our game. And we need to build that trust with a client. When we do build trust with a client, that we need to be there and do a lot more as a partner, instead of just like a web designer or developer, just trying to turn over a website really quick, trying to sell a website for $2,000, because that is a part I feel is going to be in big jeopardy right now. I think people are a bit, they've gone through it a lot with websites. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think there's other reasons why somebody, besides the money factor? I think people are willing to pay if they get the value out of it, but besides the money, do you think there are other reasons why somebody would choose to prompt their way into building something they have no idea of what they're building or how to even prompt?
Yeah, one big reason, I think, and that's they're being sold a lie. They're being sold that AI will do it all for you, without understanding that you need to know what you're doing to get results. I'm sure you've tried tools like Bolt, Lovable, so on, even maybe just sort of like just general AI tools. When you start off, you ask it something very simple and you get a very simple answer back. And you kind of look at it and go, well, that's a bit shit. The same thing goes, I think, when you start coding. Say, build me a landing page for product X. And then you come back with what was typical, even just like 2 or 3 months ago, the typical blue and purple design with the typical animated boxes pop on with the hero section. And they all looked cookie cutter. They all looked exactly the same. The only thing different was the words and maybe the odd picture inserted in there. And that is probably what most people are going to end up with, because they don't understand what they're trying to do. As a comment sort of said a little bit earlier, is that AI doesn't generate slop, although it does sometimes, but some people using AI do. In other words, you don't understand what you're doing well enough to get a good result. And that, I think, is ultimately where people are being sold the lie. They're being told, just use AI. AI will do it for you. Look into doing, like, if you for example, I mean, my partner, she's involved in the tendering process. So a big part of that is you've got companies, they've got a tender document that comes back with questions and things in there, and they've got to answer it. And a lot of those companies are going to ChatGPT to basically write the answer. And we all know there's telltale signs that AI has written it. And with AI hallucinations and kids using it to do homework and stuff like that, it's very easy to see that the results are very general and generic because you're not prompting it correctly. You're not asking it for the right things. And I think exactly the same thing is happening here. And to go back to your point about clients that have been burnt in the past, absolutely. I mean, you've been doing web design as a business for long enough to have already had probably dozens of clients, whether they actually convert into a client or a potential client, that have come to you and they've had a shitty experience, and you kind of take on board the experience and you want to make them have a better experience, so they don't walk away with that jaded feeling that all web design companies are scam artists just looking to rip them off and make a quick buck off them. When you get companies that are just basically turning out AI generated generic stuff, that's basically what they're doing. Because we have an industry that's not governed in any way, there's no rules or guidelines. It's just literally down to the ethics of the individual or the person running a freelance business or agency. it's a wild west out there, and it has been for a long time. And it's very easy to just burn people. And I think AI, as it stands today, is another way in which you can get those types of people ripping off unsuspecting clients for sometimes pretty significant amounts of money. Because if you don't know what it is you're looking at, you might think the end result is really good. It's like, oh, look, but look, it does this and it's got this, and I can edit this in the back end. But none of the security, none of the accessibility, none of those kind of general things that as a web designer you would make sure you implement are being done or even cared about. But the client just doesn't know. And I think that's where AI is in a lot of cases right now. It's a kind of Wild West time.
Yeah, interesting what you said, though. We're being sold a lie. And man, it couldn't be more true, and from all angles, too. First off, from the corporations and the companies, they're trying to get ahead and they know they need to use it. Everybody's launching it prematurely. They don't even really understand it. It's not fully thought out, but yet they have to. They feel like they have to. And in a way, they kind of have to, because if they don't, they lose market share. But then the messaging is unclear. They make it seem like, and this isn't nothing new. I remember the reason why I was so against Wix when I started learning web design and started getting my first clients. They had that commercial come up saying it only takes 3 minutes to build a website. That used to rile me, man. That used to piss me off, because I'm like, do you realize what I had to do for a couple of years just to get halfway decent doing this? Come on. You can't tell me in 3 minutes, but it's just that marketing lies. But then the other side, just like that post I saw, somebody claiming 90,000 in their first 24 hours. BS. It's just full of shit. I don't buy it at all. But then it's flooded with that as well in the Twitter, on Twitter and stuff. We saw what happened with Claudebot recently. It blew up. It went completely viral. I saw a very interesting video, though, that went deeper into how it went viral, with a lot of scammy fake accounts that are tied to crypto scams, and it all tied together. And it is coming from a place that is very deceptive. So I get why there is the resistance, and it's one of those things now where we just got to be aware and alert. It's okay. There's going to be a lot of people trying to scam, trying to profit, trying to do whatever they can to make and take and steal and do whatever it is that they do, and it's always going to be that way when something like this happens, when there's a new technology. I'm sure, I don't know. I was out there on the streets. I didn't know what happened when the internet popped off. I didn't even know about Facebook until 10 years after. But during that time, I'm sure this happened. I'm sure there was all kinds of dirty people trying to make their dirty money, but at the same time, you just can't ignore and say the internet will never happen. We still got to be aware of how is this going to affect us in our business.
Absolutely. AI isn't going anywhere at this point in time. We've talked about this before, that AI is something that we are going to all have to embrace, but it's being shoehorned into so many things right now that don't make sense, that don't improve what we do, that, again, to go back to the Wild West analogy, I think that's where we are. We are literally in the Wild West. It's going to settle down at some point when it kind of takes on board how it makes sense and how people start to use it. But right now, as you said, there are so many people out there that are saying, this is the best thing since sliced bread. This is the thing that's going to kill everything else. I'm not saying it's not going to make a massive impact. It already is making a massive impact. But it's in its infancy for how we use it right now. And it's also making people incredibly lazy. People are no longer, there's a comment that's popped up saying that they've got a friend who's a teacher who's using AI ChatGPT to write the questions for quizzes, and the kids are using ChatGPT to answer those questions. Well, how is that even, what does that do? That does nothing to educate people. And I think the way things are going, unless we're careful with how we adopt it, and this is probably bigger than the whole web design thing, is that we're just going to end up having a lot more dumb people. And unfortunately, natural selection isn't as good as it used to be. Back in the dinosaur days, natural selection kept the population under control. These days, medical advancements are doing the opposite. So dumb people are going to become dumber.
Mm, they're the ones that have all the babies.
Ooh, let's not go
Okay,
down that.
I'm not going down that one. I do this. Do you know what? When I'm like not getting enough sleep, I'll put my foot in my mouth. So I should have given that advance warning in the beginning. But no, man, we've already been on that train for a while. Short form content has been doing that. It's been taking away, the whole attention span. Now turning everything over to ChatGPT or whatever is, like taken away from the critical thinking. Today I was watching a video just trying to relax and decompress. It was something on Method Man. I'm a big hip hop head, so all my feed is like, some stuff. So I'm watching this like 17-minute documentary on Method Man, and about 5 minutes in, when they say, little Yachty, but little Yachi, I'm like, this is AI, and I felt tricked. And what sucked was it was like interesting at first. It was pulling out all the clips, and I'm like, this is like interesting. But as soon as I found out it was AI, like I didn't want to watch anymore. And then it got me thinking, like, this is the wrong reason for AI. This is exactly what we're talking about. Now, okay, AI could have gone in and somebody just used AI to do all the work on creating the video. Just a very lazy way of doing it. But like, where's the creativity in it? Where is the creative thought and the process that goes into it? Like, I think there are some situations, like I'm just thinking about video creation, kind of like tying into one of your last videos on developers in WordPress doing more to show how to use their products. I feel like, let's say a developer, somewhere in Eastern Europe who doesn't really speak English that well, this and isn't wanting to be behind the camera. This is where AI could really be helpful because they could create tutorials on their tools that makes it really easy for people to learn and understand it. That is a good use case where it could really be helpful. But
Yep.
then you got other stuff, just people wanting to create videos to get views and trying to monetize, and that to me is, I don't think it's cool. I think it is very lazy. I'm gonna end with this. I remember last year seeing somebody post and brag about their website that they're ranking and getting all this traffic, and they did it all with AI. They used the AI agent. The AI agent, it came up with the topics, created the content calendar, chose the content of the day, the topic. It wrote the outline, wrote the blog post, used an MCP, uploaded it into WordPress, created that blog, published it, and does a blog post every single day. And they're bragging about it, about getting traffic to it. And I'm like, this is disgusting. This isn't cool. Like, I mean, it's cool that you're able to do it, but it's not cool to actually do it. Like, it shouldn't be allowed online. I feel like it shouldn't be allowed to be indexed because pretty soon we have a lot of that happening now. So I get the lazy argument. I feel it too.
That kind of leads me on to a very, very good point, and something that come up multiple times in the comments, which we'll take a look at some of those comments in a bit on those videos that I've released and the live stream we did. And that is that websites are not going to die because that's where AI gets its information from. Well, doesn't that mean that we're going to end up with an echo chamber when you have more and more sites that are basically just regurgitating what's already out there, using AI, using MCPs, using ChatGPT to write it, etc., 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 like you just said? Doesn't that just become an echo chamber that takes out the human element at some point? Because, I mean, if you go back a year ago, they said that basically ChatGPT, AI, and so on has scraped the entire internet, and now it doesn't have any more information. The information is not, well, the website's not creating information fast enough to keep AI up to speed and up to date. Well, when a big chunk of that starts to become AI generated, and then AI is basically feeding off AI to answer those questions and to create that content, what happens then? Is this going to end up being very much like where you take a JPEG image and you basically compress it 100 times, by the time you finished, it's just 25 pixels instead of 25 million pixels? Is that what's going to happen to the information that's actually basically just going circular, AI to AI to AI to AI to AI, round and round and round? If there's misinformation in there, we already know that AI can hallucinate easily, and there's so much misinformation on the internet that's feeding the AI. And at what point does it just become an echo chamber of misinformation mixed up with correct information? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's going to be a very weird time in a few years, to see how things turn out. What happens when people stop thinking, stop creating, stop really doing that critical thinking, stop working the whole creative process and turning it over. Somebody put in the comments earlier on, I like what they wrote. They put in that AI is to help make you speed up your work, not to do the thinking for you. And I caught myself listening to my chat GPT. I caught it and I started getting pissed off. I started arguing with it. I'm like, no. And then and just the other day we got in I get in arguments with my chat GPT. Anybody else do that? Anybody else just get flat in an argument like you're wrong? You guys go back and forth. And finally, it's just like, dude, F you. You're not human. You don't understand what it means. You're telling me I'm wrong, but I know I'm wrong. That's the point of being a human, is I know logically some things are wrong, but there's something deeper to it that only a human, a person, somebody who could think for themselves would know. And I'm trying to be less dependent on my fictional chat GPT characters.
But I think you did raise a good point though about the amount of AI-based content that's being created on channels like YouTube and things like that, or outlets like YouTube and stuff. I mean, we are definitely seeing the enshittification of almost everything. Look at Spotify. They're basically embracing AI to get it to generate fake bands, fake music, all AI generated. And then they're spewing that out and promoting that because then they don't have to pay an artist because there is no artist. YouTube, the amount of content that's AI generated, and you can tell. And I think maybe not right now, but I'm sure you are the same as probably most people in the conversation here. You can spot AI straight away. You can spot the mannerisms, the way that AI writes things with the sort of the dash in between certain things, and the way it always uses the same terminology. There's lots of things there, and the same with videos, the same voices, the same structure. They're always worded in the same kind of way. So that AI has generated the script. AI using like 11 Labs, for example, is generating the actual voiceover. I mean, Christ, I've seen God knows how many tutorial videos for WordPress and that, where it starts off with an American accent, then in between you obviously done an edit and they've got a British accent, then it goes back to a woman doing it in an American accent. And I'm like, geez, could you make this any more AI generated? And you just put it on and you just go, I would rather watch a video that has no talking, that just has text at the bottom and music playing. And I hate those kinds of videos. People are getting fed up with it because the information, while you might want it, I think people are going to crave humans. We know we've talked about this, that YouTube is going that way for educational content. Unless you were doing something completely different, it is going that way. And that's only going to get worse in the short term. I do think it will come out the other side, because I think right now there's so much shit being created and dumped onto YouTube, and they're embracing it and promoting it as opposed to fighting against it and keeping the people that actually make the money and make the platform what it is, that human creative aspect. I mean, I don't watch a lot of videos because I like the content. I watch the video because I like the people. That, to me, is an important thing. And if I see AI, unless it's something I literally have no other way of getting that information, I will just go off it, and I would rather research it myself in some other way. So I'm not adverse to using AI. I use AI every single day for lots of different things. But I also kind of feel like we have to be realistic about this, that things are going to get worse before they get better. And that's in all kinds of creative areas: music, video production, entertainment, web design. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We have to go through that. It's cyclical. We all see this in lots of different parts of our lives. Things will come out, it gets embraced. I mean, all you've got to do is take a look at, I was watching a video the other day about advertisements. Now take a look at things like Netflix and just any of those kinds of streaming services. Take a look at all those things where the whole point was you paid for those things to get away from the shit that you hated on normal terrestrial TV. Adverts, breaks, having to wait the next week to see the next episode, blah, 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 blah. Those are things that we paid for. Well, now they're basically taking a lot of that away, shoving adverts in there, making more money through adverts. Apps, we've got to use an app for everything now. If I want to control my lighting, I've got to use an app that's full of adverts. This is the enshittification of everything that we do. And at some point, people are going to get pissed with it and they're going to rebel against it in some way. Stop watching it. You're going to see those things go down. And people will crave human nature, human creativity, human connection. Because everything that's faceless, doesn't matter what information you get from it, you're going to get bored of it at some point because you want to connect with the person on the other side of that camera.
Yeah,
Makes sense?
it's not sustainable. Yeah, it's not sustainable for them to keep going in that direction. First, you can't use AI to replace music. To me, that's just insane. Like music comes from the soul. That's something that's like way back to the origins of mankind, since we started creating music. You can't replace that. But, something you said, like in YouTube educational content, we have seen a decline. It's across the board. Everyone's feeling it. And, it's something that is just going on in the creative businesses, web design, web development, all other industries as well. The main thing is, how are we going to not only get through it, and this is like what I keep asking myself, what I keep looking, and the reason why I'm now back again working with clients. I want to be in it because I want to navigate through these changes. I see it. I see things that we need to do in order not just to like get through it, but to also be really successful in it. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity right now. But the thing is, when we're running a website business, if we're selling websites to clients, we're running our own business. And when we look at the numbers of businesses that fail, it's a very, very high number. So how are we going to make sure we're not part of that? And that's what I want to do. I want to have these discussions. I want to be in it with everyone. And I want to keep looking at how we could maintain, get through it, not just sustain through it, but succeed in it. And, there are some things that I see. I have some ideas, but I would like to ask you, like, looking at our industry, the changes that are happening, and just kind of guessing, because nobody knows what it's going to be like in 1, 2, or 3 years from now, but guessing and just, what's the term? Okay, I lost the term. It was inside of my head, but just a good estimate. Where do you think web designers and developers should be focusing on right now? What kind of changes should they be considering? What kind of pivots should they be looking at?
One of the first things I think is to not become so reliant upon AI to do everything, because I've seen comments going, oh, well, you no longer need to use plugins, for example, because I can get my AI to create that plugin, so I don't need to use it. By all means, do it. If you understand the code, and people are going, oh, but it will correct itself, it will do this, that, and the other. If you still don't know what you're looking at, and you 100% rely upon AI to create the code, check the code, and validate the code, and you do nothing inside that, at some point you are going to get bitten. If you're doing it for yourself and you're doing little things, cool, go for it. But once you start getting clients on board and they have mission critical services like selling things online, having data stored to do with their clients, etc., you open yourself up to a world of pain by not knowing what you're doing there. And I think this is the same with lots of things. It's like when you literally 100% rely upon AI without understanding what it is you're doing, you are asking for trouble. Yes, AI is getting better, and yes, AI will improve, but AI is still being trained on what we give it. And it can still make mistakes. It's not all encompassing and all knowing. So we have to be realistic about what we can do with it. Don't be the complete opposite and go, right, okay, I'm going to bury my head in the sand and I'm never going to use AI, because I think in that 2 to 3 year time period, you will be left behind. Doesn't matter. AI is there to improve our workflow, not replace our workflow with everything. I still create videos myself. I still edit videos myself. Why? Because I could get something else to do it for me. I could get an AI tool to do it for me. And I've tried those, but they take away the creativity. They take away the human aspect of it. And that's a big part of it. And web design is going to be the same. People like to connect with humans. We've seen it before, like you said, with Wix, with Squarespace, with any of those kind of DIY platforms. What you get is people buy into it, like they're buying into the AI hype right now. They jump into it, and then they very quickly realize they have not got a clue what the hell they're doing. You saw it, go back 10 years ago, where Wix and stuff was being pushed in everything. People jumped on that, and how many clients did you pick up that had a Wix website or a Squarespace website or one of the other tools like that, and they come to you go, I don't know, this isn't what I want to do, because they don't understand the process. That's where a good web designer, freelancer, agency, whatever it is, it's not about the technical aspect of building a website. HTML code, PHP, CSS, all those things, they can be learned, and AI can replace a lot of that. But you still need someone that understands the client journey, the whole process of building a website that doesn't just exist, but it works, it converts, it does its job. That's where the human element, in my opinions, will always be better than an AI will be. Because it's the same as anything where it's very, very black and white. AI doesn't understand gray. It understands black and white. Information in, information out. Humans have a gray area in the middle that allows us to reason with that information that's coming in before we process it and put it out. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I think
that right there. Oh, go ahead.
Go on.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, I was going to say that right there is the reason, why websites aren't going to go away, why our jobs aren't going to go away as web designers and web creators. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, could relate that a lot of clients that we got necessarily didn't come because they looked at the portfolio and it was just the perfect portfolio for them, but it was the conversation, the call, the connection, the gut feeling that they had that this person is the right person for us to work with. People work with people. People connect with people. And that's why it's always going to be needed. But also, just got me thinking too, while you were bringing that up about the customer journey and the creativity and being able to be in the process of your editing and having, your videos created the way it's from you. And, designers, web designers, logo designers, brand specialists, like, I don't see even something like Lovable or something that can create something decent being able to just take it away. Yeah, they'll take some. They'll get their share for sure. But there's always going to be room for the creative. There's going to always be room for the musician. And I think we will go in a weird swing. Who knows how long it'll take. But yeah, really interesting. Really interesting. My mind is going right now.
We just, like I say, it goes back to being sold the lie. Being sold the lie that AI will do everything for you. It won't. It will help you. And I think, like I said it just now, if you embrace that and you use it in the right places, and as Max said, yeah, we probably won't do coding much, if at all, in the next couple of years, because we will be able to get AI to do the grunt work for us. But again, that's no different to what you would have done. If you were in an agency, you generally would have, let's say you had 10 people in your agency. You'd have senior designers, you'd have developers, you'd have client liaisons, and you'd have interns that would be the bottom of the sort of the ladder at this point in time. And they would generally do the grunt work. That's where AI comes in. We've seen AI sort of visual creativity is getting better. We are getting better looking sites. But again, AI is not going to set the trends. The trends, the creativity are from the visionary people that go, I want to buck this trend and I want to create something truly new and unique in my design. We've seen it throughout the decades in photography, in illustration, in artwork, in poster design, in web design, video, movies, everything. They go through phases and art styles and things like that. AI doesn't create that. AI just mimics it. So if there's no creativity, you won't see the next iteration of design coming in. You'll just see maybe an amalgamation of something else that doesn't actually have creativity in it. It's just gone, let's take A, B, and C, shoehorn them together and see what comes out of it. And you could argue, well, isn't that what humans do? Yes. But humans do it with a creative eye. They look and go, does this visually look good? Is this appealing? And other people look and go, that looks like absolute shit. Like brutalism, for example. Brutalism is a design aesthetic that I thought was horrible, but it was very popular for a period of time, and it has been over the years and decades. But each time those things come out, they change slightly by where we are right now, where we are in our design, where we are with the tools that we've got. Years ago, you were limited by how you put things out because it was hand created and then used printing presses. Well, now we've got design tools. We can sit there with an iPad and we can draw things up and do things. We can print that out and we can do a million different things with it super quickly. So those tools have enabled us to become more creative, faster, and build on what we had previously. AI doesn't think that way. It just does. If you said, build me a website, it's going to build you a website the same as probably what 20 other websites it's built in the last 10 seconds for 20 other people prompting it. You have to get in there and start telling it exactly what you want. And even then, it's still going to take that from its base of understanding of design and color theory and CSS and HTML and all those kinds of things. It doesn't have the creative spark that we have. And humans crave interaction and creativity. I've used AI to help me in songwriting, but I put my things in there. And the crazy thing is, it's come back with the demo stuff that I've put together with the vocals and things that I put in there. And I haven't given this. It's come back with basically exactly what I've done, which is crazy. But you put something in there and you say, right, there's literally just 2 bars of a piece of music. Now create something. It's very generic in what it comes back with because you don't give it enough data to get something that's going to be more unique, that's going to be you. You're just basically saying, this is 3 chords, it's a 3-chord structure, now write a song from it. Well, it's going to be the same kind of 3-chord structure as the 100,000 other songs that use that same 3-chord structure, and it's just using that as a source of information. It's kind of the same with what it's going to do with everything else. So I think, to go back to your original question, like 10 minutes ago, where do I see things? I see AI taking over a lot of the grunt work, but the humans being the key point between the client and the technology. In the same way that we have been for years, but maybe a little less hands-on now, where we would have pushed it down the food chain inside our businesses, and we would do it ourselves by just telling the AI what we want, to prompt it, to get a better result because we know what we're doing, and then liaise with the client to kind of get what they want, get their idea out of their head, come through us to finalize it and realize it, and then we use the tools to actually build it. That's where I think we will be in the next couple of years.
Yeah. We're actually got a good advantage, those of us who have been doing this for a while, the freelance web designers and developers, even like the smaller agencies. I think we're at a very big advantage right now because, a lot of, the grunt work or the things that we could outsource or contract, we can now use the tools to get a lot of that done. I think this is something we're going to see a lot more happening immediately and definitely going forward. And that is being able to do the work of a small team. But there's a caveat to it. You have to know what you're doing. You have to understand. It's kind of like when I started developing and learning how to code and learning how to build websites with just HTML, CSS, JavaScript. In that learning process, at first it was really hard because I didn't know the questions to ask. I didn't know how to label and identify things. And that only comes through experience. You have to put in the work first. So those of us who have that experience and understand how all of it works, we could identify, we could tell it what to do. But somebody who doesn't, maybe just got too comfortable learning and using just one page builder and didn't really step outside to use other tools. Maybe just did one thing without understanding the code behind it. It's going to make things difficult. And that's why I believe we need to change. I think right now, more than ever, freelancers, web designers, developers need to really invest more in learning. We have to really start learning. Even though we won't really need to code later in the future, we got to understand how it works. We got to understand how databases work. We got to understand a lot of different aspects. Now, when I was running my agency, I would hire people that were better than me, that were specialists in different areas and could do things that I couldn't do. But I would be able to manage and direct because I knew enough to understand if something is on the right track or if it's fallen off. I knew enough to know what we need to do. And if something felt off, I had that gut feeling and I had that experience to go back and be like, this doesn't seem right. Let's walk through it. And we could go in, and often I could find stuff that was going in the wrong direction and, turn a project around from being a disaster. So it's kind of like going back to like what you're saying, like the layperson who doesn't understand how all this works, being able to just prompt their way through a website, like how are you going to do that when you don't even know what this is called or what question to ask? But for those of us that do, if anything that I hope comes from this conversation, if anything, I hope that it could encourage and inspire those of us who are already, doing this at a level of experience, put in the work to realize and recognize what kind of opportunity we have right now. The thing is, we have that opportunity. Now we need to look at how are we going to use it. And one of my things that I could see that we need to do is we need to start treating ourselves, even for freelancing, we could turn ourselves into a small team, or we could run a small team like it's a bigger team. Other things as well, like we could be streamlining projects and we could start doing more for our clients as partners, solving more problems for our clients, doing things we never would have touched before in the past. Now we can, if a client had a big problem and I was unsure about it, or I just couldn't afford, or it was too risky to go hire somebody to fix that problem, I didn't want to touch it because I didn't want to take on the risk. But now those barriers, they're getting lowered where we can start to get a little risky, don't get yourself in trouble, but we could start to do more and, position ourselves as a bigger solution solver for our clients than just building websites.
This is the thing I think we talked about before, and I'm a big advocate of this, is that we need to become more broad in what we offer. We can't become that specialist. Go back to, for example, showing our age now, go back to like where if you built websites years ago, you didn't use Photoshop, you didn't mock up the design, you had a coder, you had a front-end designer, etc., etc. Everyone had their skill set. And then you had the democratization of design, where you suddenly, instead of just knowing HTML and CSS and so on, you had to know Photoshop, you had to know Flash, you had to know, and then Figma, those kinds of tools. So you were no longer being a specialist. You had to be more generalized in your skill set and the tools you understood. And it went from being, you could get a job that's like 50 grand a year as a web designer, and a web designer was the person that designed the website. The web developer was the person that coded the website. And all those things were specialists inside a specific industry. That's gone. Now, yourself, if you're a freelancer, you use tools like Figma to design it, you work with the client, you code it, you test it, you build it, you host it, you manage it, you do all those things. So we're no longer being a specialist in one area. Now we've got to be far more generalist. Tools like AI are going to mean that a lot of those things that we had to do manually before will now become something we can automate to a certain extent, which allows us then to build those relationships with those clients. So we become, as I've mentioned in the past, like a growth partner. We learn more about their business, we build a relationship with that client, and we help that business grow through tools like automation, how they can embrace AI, how we can streamline their processes, how we can integrate their website into their CRM, into their point of sale, how we can get them, sort of online sales and things like that, marketing, promotion, all those things. We have to become that. So this is the next evolution of what we had to do when we went from being specialists into more generalists. And now we need to become something beyond that and take out the manual element and build the relationships with our clients to become, like I say, their growth partners and understanding their business and taking the time to grow alongside them. I mean, one of the things I always said when I was running my business and when I was a freelancer is that everything I want to do is to help that business grow, because if I can help them grow, I'll grow alongside them, because they'll like what I do, what I offer them, and they'll keep coming back to me, and we'll build that relationship, and their business grows because I've helped them in certain different ways. And this is the difference, I think, between that company like we talked about at the beginning, where it's a fast buck. You saw them a website, thanks very much, goodbye, on to the next person. We don't want that. I mean, I had clients, I'm sure you've exactly the same thing. You've seen something and you think, that would be good for client X. And you give them a call and say, look, I've just been having a look at this. I think this would be great. If there's somebody you're interested in, let's have a chat about it. I can pop into the office, we can talk about it. And 9 times out of 10, you'd go in, you have that conversation, they would buy it or buy into it or whatever it was. Why? Because they trusted you, because you built that relationship on a personal level. That's not something they're going to get with an AI chatbot when they're asking it to build something. When there's a problem, they don't have, yes, it can probably fix a lot of problems, not everything, but unless you know what the problem is and how to tell it and how to fix it, you can't just go, this is broke, fix it. Because the AI is going to go like, okay, cool. What's broke? What do I need to do? What's not working properly? It doesn't understand the context in a lot of cases, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, or it'll just guess and give you guesses.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we can't be one-trick ponies anymore. Like things have changed. I remember back, when I was like deep into like, working with coaches to help me out with my agency, really learning how to do this. Back then, it was like we're told you specialize, you niche down, avoid the shiny eye syndrome, all that stuff. But now it's the opposite. Like shiny eye syndrome now is a good thing to have. Like it's something that we got to explore now. We have to get out of the bubble, and we definitely have to generalize. We have to think more as generalists. But again, that's what gives us who have a specialty already in web design and web development the advantage. And we got to start looking at it like we have the advantage. Now we got to use that advantage and not stay stuck in that same bubble, or else we're just going to be a one-trick pony and get bitter and, throw a lot of negativity out there and, just say angry things, in comments and call my friend an idiot. That's what we get. No, I'm just kidding. But for real, like, like we're in a good time right now. It's interesting. I like the chaos. I like it. It's like when everything's so stable, it gets kind of boring. It's not boring anymore. So
it's too fast moving to be boring.
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting close to the hour, so as always, I want to sort of wind things down a little bit now so we don't run over too much, because I know, like I say, the time difference between you and I is quite considerable. I did have lots of slides on here with different comments and things that I wanted to talk about, and for some reason, they've all disappeared. So that's awesome. Love that. Love technology. Yeah, my layers now have nothing at all. I literally have nothing. So that's cool. Don't know what's going on there, but we've lost everything.
No Command Z to get it back.
I'll just power off and power on again now. Just unplug a couple of these, see what the hell happens. I think, to be honest, I think we've still covered, even though I didn't pull the comments up on screen, we have covered quite a few of the comments as they kind of came up. I'm pretty sure there's one more thing I wanted to quickly talk about. Let me just get my notes up because I've been marginally organized this time. Yeah. No, I think actually I covered all those things. Ask AI to do them again. Yeah. Thanks, Jimmy. But let's just quickly say a couple of things. Been quite a few people in the comments today, different creators and things. So it's always good to see the different creators like Jimmy, the Webinaut. We've had Imran was in earlier on. A few others, Dave is in. So good to see you guys in. Thank you very much for joining into the stream today. Jeffrey, before we do wrap this up though, how can people find out more about you? I know you've got a new course that you're working on. So do you want to have a little talk about that very quickly? Because it kind of ties in quite nicely to what we've been talking about at this end part of the video.
Okay, yeah. Well, you can find me at Lightbox, Lytbox. I think there's a link to the website in the description. You just put it in YouTube. as well. And we also have the community, the Lightbox Academy. You know, it's for web creators connecting, learning, growing together. That is the mission. My mission has always been I didn't want anybody having to do this alone like I did in the beginning. And I remember how painful it was trying to figure this whole thing out. It wasn't until I connected with others. So that is the main thing inside of our community. And I have something called the Web Designers Playbook, which is coming out the end of the month. And it's not really a course. It is a ready to go system and blueprint. It's the same that I built up inside my web design business throughout the years, reiterated on over and over, and also adjusting it for these new changes that are in our industry right now. And instead of it being a course, it's just a ready to go system where there's training showing how to implement it. It's designed and meant to be done within like a couple of weeks and start using it right away. So that's the big project. Yeah.
And again, like we've just said, I think that's the important thing, is to understand how you build that relationship and don't just rely upon building websites. It's bigger than that, much bigger than that these days.
So much bigger.
So we'll do one last question, because Ads 222 has just popped this up. And I think we talked about this in a previous live stream briefly, but I think let's just quickly go over this now. I'll hand it over to you first of all, Jeffrey, and then I'll kind of give you my take on it. But basically, I'd like to ask, how do you feel AI is going to affect you as content creators, as people are now turning to AI to learn and not YouTube, website, blogs, etc.? So I know we did talk about this recently, but I think it's still a good topic, because I think it's something we do need to kind of talk about. So Jeffrey, how do you feel about this? How does it affect you? And what are your thoughts on how you're going to handle it?
Yeah, well, it's there. The dip happened for sure. And for me, I look at it like I'm in the same position as others in other creative spaces, that the industry is changing, things are changing around us, and I have to step back and really look at those changes and how can I pivot. Some of the things that I plan to do is to create more content, to focus more on teaching the web design business aspect, to adjust a lot of my content, more about quality and connection. So instead of numbers, like just forget about the numbers. For they're vanity metrics, and it's not about that. It's about the results, how much value could be added. So the way that I could see it affecting me, or the way that I'm looking at being able to adjust to these changes, is adjusting in a way where I could actually do more, create more value, create more connection, and really start to think more and more out the box, find other ways to help people right now, help web creators and designers who are also going through an industry that is having a dip. You know, there is, and it's there. We're all feeling this dip. So how can we all navigate it? So that's what I'm doing. I'm in it with you guys. That's the main thing. I don't know. Do you feel that way too, Paul? Like you're kind of like in it?
Absolutely. You know, we talked about this kind of where this whole sort of live stream like this even started from a couple of weeks back. We talked about this. Sure, numbers are down. We are definitely seeing a dip. I know myself, I mean, not every creator might see the same thing, but I've looked at the stats for a lot of the other creators out there doing the same kind of things that we are doing, and their views are definitely down, regardless. But as we've already said, I think the sort of overall overarching message of today's live stream is that we're in the Wild West right now. Everything is being thrown at AI. People are already getting sick of it. We're going to see where we are now is going to change. And when we come out the other side, do we know what it's going to be like? No. But I know for myself and Jeffrey, from what you're saying, I'll still be there on the other side of that. What I teach, how I show it, the things that I demonstrate, and the ways in which we may work probably will change. But then that's the nature of what we do anyway. Go back to when I started this 10 years ago. I was teaching Visual Composer and things like that, and the basics of WordPress. And through there, you've gone through Elementor, you've gone through Bricks, you've gone through GeneratePress and GenerateBlocks, you've gone through sort of various other technologies. AI is just another part of that. Do people want to learn everything from using AI tools? At this point in time, it's a novelty factor, but people will get bored of it. People like and crave human connection. The world isn't going to get less like that. I think the world is going to get more like it. So once people get sick to the back teeth of seeing AI generated content to everything, they're going to look for those people that are humans, that they can connect with. They can drop a comment on there, and they're not going to get some kind of AI generated comment back. They're going to get a comment from that creator. They're going to get conversations. I've talked to people, outside of YouTube and stuff like that, where people have contacted me and I've had conversations, we've done podcasts and stuff like that. I think that's going to get bigger as people get sick to death of AI being everywhere. How many times do you look online, like we said earlier, see something that's AI generated within the first 30 seconds on YouTube, and I'm off it quicker than anything? Same thing goes when you see AI written content. I hate the AI crap that we get when you do a Google search, because I'm not interested, because a lot of the time it's not right. I've seen things on there going, click on this, go to this section on this software or whatever, and it's like, that didn't even exist. So the information you may be getting is from 3 or 4 versions ago where the interface is completely changed. That to me is more frustrating. So I will go past that. I'll go past the sponsored ads and actually look at actual responses on human generated content. That's not because I'm adverse to AI. I love technology. I'm a techno-joy person. I love embracing technologies. But you become fed up with it. You just get pissed off with the same kind of generic crap being spewed out over and over and over again. And you look for the human. You look for the person. That's where I think I'll be. And I know that for me, I will want to be on the other side of this when things change. And they will change. I've been in this long enough to know that things will change. So that's where I am. And I'm sure, like I say, Jeffrey, you're probably the same. How you get through this part, well, we don't know, in various different ways. Like you say, you're starting to work with clients again. We all have different ways in which we cope with it. But I know you well enough, I think, to know that your passion is for the teaching, and it isn't about the numbers constantly. YouTube pushes you into becoming obsessed by numbers. The reality is, we do this because we want to help people change their lives in some way. In a little tiny, tiny way, they can make more money. They can charge a little bit more for what they do. They learn a new skill to make them faster, whatever it is. That's why I'm in this. And I'm sure you were exactly the same. I've talked to you enough times to know that your passion is getting people to improve their lives through various different ways in what you can do, whether you're teaching them, helping them, answering questions, supporting them in some way or other. That to me is more important.
Absolutely. That's it right there.
Scary times.
Yeah, man.
But I think on that note, we will wind things up today because I'm a little bit over where we wanted to be. So thank you, Jeffrey, again for joining in on this live stream. And hopefully in 2 weeks' time, again, we can do another one on maybe a different topic this time. We'll have a little think about what we want to talk about. But I enjoy these. I love having a conversation. I love seeing what the guys in the comments are coming back with, what comments we'll see on the video afterwards on the replay, and talking to you about your point of view. It's all super interesting stuff. So thank you once again for being on today's stream. Thank everybody for being part of it. Take care, look after yourselves, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Paul.